everyone, welcome back to Taking Back Monday. I am so excited that you decided to say goodbye to the Sunday scaries and hello to a life of much more meaningful work. And I'm really excited to introduce you to my new friend Jason. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I can't wait to talk to you. So I was doing some prep for our conversation and really reading through kind of what you're all about and trying to figure out, what are we going to talk about on the show today? And you have a program called the Live 100. Can you tell us more about what that is?
I suffered for many years of just not living my best life, right? Many of us just can say that we're just not showing up each day and, we're frustrated by the circumstances. We're just not at ease with just how our life is going, right? And I grew up a very shy kid. I grew up a kid that really didn't want to go out there and take action. I had a lot of events happen in my formative years. And so I lost a couple friends between 13, 14, 15, some to, just random accidents, a boat accident, another one committed suicide. And then my girlfriend, the one person I thought that I was just comfortable opening up to, she got killed in the car accident at 17. So I ended up going to college is really just lost in the world, just feeling like a lot of things you just, I was almost like walking on glass. So like anything could just be easily taken away. And at the same time, my parents, they were struggling in their own struggles through a small business they had. So I ended up leaving college and, moving to New York City. I had a finance degree, but had no real energy or motivation to go into business, to go into finance. I just felt lost and started working in bars and working in restaurants and just doing a lot of things that I just were just kind of just coming at me. And I was just kind of going with it, right? I had no inspiration or aspiration to go out there and do more. And I was frustrated with where I was because, many times when we don't have a goal or we don't have a direction, we don't have a part, we're just mad at the universe that we're not getting what we want, but we don't really know what we want, right? So how can we get what we want if we don't know what we want? Well, one night after working in bars for a number of years and just being mad at everything, like just not having any money, just not bad relationships, just you name it. I was angry at everybody and anybody but myself. Well, I got on a bike and started riding across, Manhattan, and I turned down Second Avenue, and out of nowhere, a flash of light came out, and I got hit by a car and just thrown into the air. So pull myself to, I get pulled out of the street, taken to the hospital, and lo and behold, get some stitches. I have a pin that gets put in my wrist. I have a bone that gets broken in my shoulder. And I get out of the hospital, and all that I can think of is like, man, I need to get back to my bartending job because I need to make money to make rent. And I had this moment of reflection, like, okay, listen, you keep saying how much you despise where you are, you hate your life, you hate all your circumstances. Now you get hit by a car, luckily here you are walking, getting out of a hospital. And all you can think about is just going back to the life that you don't like, don't want to be with. And I had that moment of pause and reflection just where I was like, okay, if you're going to keep doing chaotic, crazy things, you're going to keep getting bad results. And then you just have to understand and just be good with it. Stop complaining. Or we can start making some small changes. And lo and behold, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like some magical moment where the next day happened, but the next day, I just started making small changes, getting up with a direction, right? Going to bed at a reasonable time, not drinking at nighttime, starting to, pause before getting angry over things. And little by little, things started to work in my favor, right? So it started to build some momentum. So I went from working in bars to open up a bar and restaurant in New York City. I opened up a brewery in New York City, and then, moved to New Jersey and helped my dad with his construction business, his small business. So we really transitioned his business to help him rapidly scale that business, almost 25 times revenue from where he was. Helped dad, and then started to move into various forms of real estate. And from there, it led me from doing flipping projects to some large apartment investing, which I still do today. And we've brought, a little over 350 million of real estate, mainly down here in the Southeast. Well, the through line of how this led to the Live 100 program is people were like, well, how did you make change? And it started when I look back, it was a series of events that I've now put on paper. Everything from just breaking the habits that I had, right? But, pivoting those habits because we basically on repertoire of like 75 to 80,000 thoughts a day, we repeat 75% of them, right? So if you're having bad habits, bad thoughts, you're just repeating them just subconsciously, right? So you have to break and pivot those habits to better habits. And you need to start building momentum. You need to start putting yourself in a position to own where you are, but position yourself for greatness so you can magnify the results that are possible within your life. And I've started to work to help others with this platform, basically as a turnaround expert, really helping people who aren't fulfilling their life to ask the question of why, to be self-aware to how they're showing up so they can start owning it, so they can start making the choices to live a better fulfilled life.
There's a lot of different directions I can go with what you're saying here, but I really want to key on your idea of small steps for greater success. I think when I look at my corporate clients and the people that I work in like change management and transformation. They come in with this huge program that they're going to try to roll out to thousands of people. And it's like an overnight overhaul of everything that they've ever done. And it's one of those things where they're surprised when it fails, when they completely put everyone on their heads and don't think about it in small steps, but think about it as, a macro transformation. I mean, did you ever say to yourself, okay, these small steps are fine, but I'm not really seeing any outcomes. I'm just going to give up. I'm going to go back.
Oh, all the time, right? Many times in my life, I've done that. You can think of that from everything from just relationship wise to fitness wise to business wise, right? We see so many people like, I mean, fitness is the easiest thing because people will go to the gym one day and say, I don't see the results, right? And
Yeah.
you'd be like, I don't see any results, like one day, right? But it's the little work. And what happens, like in the gym, is a very good example because someone will show up like it's New Year's Eve and the next day they go to the gym for 4 hours and they're like, I see no changes and I'm so sore and they don't go back. Right.
Right.
But the person who shows up and does 15 minutes a day or like runs a mile every day for the next 200 days or 150 days, you start to see this massive transformation, which they can't see because each and every day it's a small amount of change. Right. It's like if you have kids, right, you don't realize how fast they're growing until you're around someone who hasn't seen them. And they're like, oh man, you've grown 6 inches because you're with them every day. Well, with us in our business, right, the business is like our baby. So we try to make these changes that we want to be a massive change from where we are. And it fails in many ways. One is because we don't think of the small steps that need to be taken to get there. And two, we don't align with our team, right? We go in there and we just throw in this bomb into our team where we say, well, tomorrow we're going to go this direction. And they're trying to understand a lot of things. One, how do I fit in this? What are the steps I need to take, right? How can I grow with this process? Am I still going to have a job in this, in this direction of the new company? And, why would we be doing this in the big place, right? We running, the bars. I was running a bar that really just grew tremendously. And we would go and the owner would come in to make change. And there was always resistance to change. Just like anything, there's always resistance because everybody pushes back because normal one to them is what they're doing today. And it's also easier, right? Change is deemed as hard, right? And also change can be scary, right? And so many times when we're trying to do new things, we have to think about that first step because that's the most important thing. Because typically when you take a first step, a couple things will happen, right? And regardless of where the goal is, right, a couple things are going to happen. One is going to be the absolute wrong way. And you're like, okay, cool. At least we know not to do that again so we can eliminate it. Two, it's kind of in a direction that's going somewhere fruitful. So now we can learn from that step and say, okay, how can we pivot this forward to the next step that can get us closer online? Or three, it's in the right path. You're on the right line. And now you can go and just magnify that result. But many times we think about these big goals and we don't understand all the steps. So when we start getting out of the gate, we feel lost. It's usually like when you talk about change with people, most think it's like stepping off a 10-story building, but it's really just stepping off the curb. And most of the reasons we don't get started is because it's so scary because we set this goal so far into the future, right? I want to make $5 million of revenue from the company. We're making 800,000 right now. Or I want to lose 40 pounds, or I want to go find that perfect someone. But what we forget to put into an account here, right, is when we get to that point of that company, it's not the end all. Many times we see these goals as like the stop point. Like, oh, if I get to $5 million revenue, like the company doesn't just stop. You don't just like close your laptop and say, okay, we're done, right? It's now that's just part of the process. So many times it's trying to learn how we can work upon the steps to achieve the goal, but understanding the goal is just a stepping point to the next goal. And how is that going to help keep carrying us forward to where we want as part of our success as a company, as a person, or all in between?
So two things I want to start with. The idea of just starting. So I'm one of those people like I enjoy the things I enjoy and I don't want to do the things I don't want to do. And so I've learned I almost have to gamify the things that I don't want to do. So one thing that I started doing is what I call speed running the tasks I hate. So I'll pick a playlist on my Spotify and it's a 10-minute playlist. And I tell myself either you finish this before the playlist ends, whatever task it is, or you get to be done. But either way, it's only going to be 10 minutes, so just go. And usually like once I'm in it, then, like I can get into it cuz I've started, right? So finding ways to gamify but also that like competitiveness with myself is almost like a reward that I give myself because either I win or the task does, right? The second thing though is the idea of success. So I think a lot of us, whether it's, trying to lose weight or get a new promotion or get my revenue to a certain level, have this mentality of, oh, well, my goal is $5 million revenue, and when I reach that, I will be successful, but I'm not successful until I do. And I think that can be a really difficult mindset if you're only looking at success in the macro and not the micro, miniature success along the way. Tell us a little bit more about how you help people measure success. And then also, in that, how do they stay disciplined in achieving their goals?
What you really want to get true to is that, are you living your success or you're living someone else's success? Most of the world is living to somebody else's tune, right? So we're watching what's happening on TV, or we're watching on Instagram, or we're watching, what's happening with friends in our network or people we went to college with. And it's very hard to unravel ourselves from someone else's success, because we see that as that must be what will make me happy. And many times what's not true, or what's not, being shown, is that that person, regardless of, the way they look or their wealth, they're facing their own struggles. It's just not being presented to us. We're being presented with their best version, their best day. And what is most important for us to get back to the true number and the true reason why we're doing something. Because just like you said, 5 million in revenue. So are you telling me if you get the $4.8 million in revenue, you're going to be like, I'm a failure, right? Or if, you lose, you know, 16 pounds, not 30, but you feel tremendously better. Does that mean you're a failure? Right. And so many times we have to pull back the veil and start to really strip off the layers to understand what is the reason that we're choosing this goal. Because along that journey, you're going to have wins to know you're on the right path, right? Because you can't control always the outcome, but you can control the actions. And the actions is where the results are, right? So if it's weight loss journey, okay, great. Are we going to the gym 3 times a week, right? So each time we go there, right, that's a win because we're showing up. We're showing that when we go there, we leave the gym, are we there for 45 minutes? Can we note our feeling when we leave that gym? We may be tired, but we feel accomplished, right? We feel better. We feel like we're on a path, right? Because now we're starting to build traction, right? Within your business, right? If one of your business is to grow, anything, lead generation. Okay, so we talk to our sales department, right? So how many calls are they making? With that, how many follow-ups are they making? With that, how many action steps do we put in there? So we can look at KPIs to see how we're building, because you can control the actions, but many times we want to control the results. And the results are hard because they will come if you're doing the right tasks in the right way for long enough. The results are going to come, but you can't put forward how quick you're going to come. Like in our world, for buying apartment buildings, to find good opportunities, like we do the work to find one a quarter. However, that's not perfect. It's not like every quarter, an apartment building just magically jumps up and we go, oh, we'll buy that one, right? It's that doing that work brings opportunities to us. And it's not a perfect timeline. We might buy nothing in the first quarter, might buy 2 in the second quarter, 1 in the third quarter, 1 in the fourth quarter. Okay, so that accumulates to 4 for the year. However, it was done in a way that didn't match it, but we're still doing the work. And that work is what accomplished us to show the results. And when we can get away from just the one goal that may happen in one day, or we might find upon that journey, we go so far past that goal, or our goals might change, and we can get to the actions, that's where we can find the reward, because the reward becomes in the action, because the action is the life we're building. The goal may happen in one day, but that doesn't stop and doesn't accomplish everything. What we need to understand is how to live within our 100 each and every day. So we are doing things that make us feel fulfilled, and understanding finding a life that makes us fulfilled is the reward at the end.
Yeah, and one of the things that you said in there reminds me of this idea that like success doesn't have to be black or white. Like it's
Right.
not an end all be all. And with the exception of like sports, right? For the most part, winning and being number one doesn't mean you're a total failure. You are just successful in your own way. You've reached the maximum potential in your own and experience in your own environment. Let's pivot to self awareness. One of my personal beliefs is that the very best leaders are totally self aware of their own failings and the things that they bring to the table, but they also have very good awareness of the people around them, whether that's peers, their boss, or the people that they're responsible for. Talk a little bit about how you help people kind of find that self-awareness and really look at themselves and say, here's where I can win, here's where I need to do some improvements.
Yeah, if you talk about a leader in a business, I've had all different failures as growing to be a leader because I found for many times that I would deem in two ways. One, it had to be perfect, so I had to do it, right? So that eliminates the reason to have your employees. Number two is that you start to be a task giver, right? So you give someone a task without the understanding of what's the purpose of this, right? So do this to this step. So you get to through step one, then I have to come back to me and ask for step two, and then step three. And by the time I get to the end, they're not fully engaged because they don't understand what are all this processes they're doing. They don't understand what's the purpose of this, right? So I found this, I've grown as a leader, is that I bring on great people who can do a role just in a tremendous fashion, right? But I give them the power to understand this. Hey, I want to get from A to Z. Now, here's how I've done in the past. However, I'm open to scenarios to understand how you are doing this to see if you have a better option, you have a better way to actually get there. And many times they'll have a better, more efficient, quicker way, but they'll also now, because they're able to do that, they'll be more engaged, they'll be more fulfilled because now they're bringing purpose to the role instead of me just saying, hey, do this, then this, then this without purpose, right? So that helps you as a leader. But in terms of us being self-aware, it's hard for us to just imagine ourselves. So if I'm standing here today, I'm with myself, right? But many times, if I just magically was able to pull myself out and be sitting there in a chair watching myself talk to you, right? Or watching myself through daily results, right? So like getting up in the morning, right? Talking to my kids, talking to the coworkers, sitting there in traffic, being angry at the person at the light, right? I would have a different result with how I thought about myself because I would say, okay, listen, that might not have been the best way to react, or maybe we could have done things different ways. So as you can take yourself back and start to really take into account how you're showing up, it allows you to process just, am I choosing the best reactions for these moments? Because many times, we have the actions, right? But we have to control our reactions to others. But we're reacting in a way subconsciously where 98% of our reactions are just happening, right? We're not really thinking them through. So the more you can pause, look at yourself as if you were sitting in a chair right there and just take into account, whoa, I just got really angry in that call. Was that necessary? Or that email I just sent, that was very quick and very, very poorly worded and very, very angry for no reason. Or I was very short with my kids because I felt stressed about this part. You can start being more self-aware about how you're showing up at the moment. And as you can do that, you could start to filter your reactions to get to the truer sense of how you can. So you can start positioning yourself for the greatness that you can have. And many times, because we're always on autopilot, we're choosing usually the quickest result, but it's typically not the best. And for me, it's allowed me to really take into account, to how I can process things. It allowed me to be less, we'll say, angry or less, but it also gives me more confidence because I now, instead of reacting to every moment just with a quick answer or quick rebuttal, because I've now filtered myself and understood myself, it's made me more confident in the steps I'm taking because I've now truly understood that my steps are in my mind the best steps for me to become not only my best self, but also for the moment in hand.
You mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that, you kind of had a wake up call, right? Waking up in the hospital after getting hit by a bike and realizing that your biggest concern was going back to a job and a life that you didn't love. Thinking about the people that have gone through your program and that you've mentored and coached, what really made for someone who was successful in that? What traits did they have or what things did they do? What was the secret sauce to finding a more meaningful life after a hopefully less traumatic wake up call
Yeah.
for everyone else?
Many times, again, it gets back to our goals and our whys and our reasons. We come here because we feel lost and we're not really sure why we feel lost. You sometimes feel like you're living in a fog and you're living in a cloud and that everybody else is getting what we want. But in fact, we forget to understand what we actually want. And so the biggest step forward is, again, it's the self-awareness stage to understand how we're showing up, but then understanding how the person who we want to be shows up. And when we look at those two things, right? So you have A, here's where I am, and then B is my ideal life. And we look at, here are the actions that I'm taking right now. Here are the steps I'm taking. Here is the path I'm on financially. Here's the path I'm on personally, with my faith, right? Here's my path, right? And the person I want to be, the ideal person, here's how that person shows up. And if there's a very stark difference between them, what are the steps that we can take from the person I am today to the ideal person I want to be? How is that person showing? What steps can I start to take? And when we look at that, it sets the stage that sometimes we're actually a lot closer than we think we are. And it just starts to work with just some of the mindset of just building confidence, understand that mentally we're telling ourselves we're not good, but we're perfect where we are. We're just at our starting line. And if there's a big difference, we have to ask ourselves, if this is our ideal person, well, is it truly what we want? Because then we have to understand why we're not doing it. What are the roadblocks we're facing today that continually keep us from taking action to get where we want? And if there's roadblocks or barricades, we can start to break them down. And if it's something that we get past those barricades, well, okay, what are the small steps we can start implementing on a day, on a week, on an hour, on a month to start build ourselves the momentum to get where we want in our ideal life? Usually it's that part. It's the mindset telling ourselves that even if we're close to where we are, that we're just not worthy of it, right? Or is this part that ideally the person we want to be is attainable? We just have to truly get down to the nuts and bolts of what that person is doing each and every day that we're not, and then start implementing them.
I think everything you said is so important, especially if it's someone who doesn't truly believe deep down that they really have what it takes, right? And that's where you have to make that decision of, are you going to change that mindset and go for it? Or are you going to continue to live a life you don't love?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that's so difficult is that we work and we do all this stuff on ourselves, right? And then say we have a great day, but then tomorrow you have to face the same fears, the same struggles, the same insecurities, right? And do it again. And that's the hardest part about life is that there's no perfect formula. It's like we can get stronger, we can fortify our mind, but no matter, what shape you're in, what financial way you're in, what relationship, you're still going to have doubts. You're going to still have things to overcome. And what we work on practices for us to fortify our mind to show up to face these struggles, right? So we can face bigger problems to get to better solutions instead of looking at every problem as just that of a problem. And it's not easy, but it is possible when we start to take account of just how we're showing up and start, again, putting the finger out, starting to point the finger back to ourselves. And that's where the change can be made.
Absolutely. So, Jason, when you think about people that you've met, you've encountered, or that you've heard speak before, who is really taking back Monday? Who else should we be talking to?
Yeah, sure. So I'll put one of my partners here in the real estate investment world, Chad King. He's really looked to just get back to the point because Monday is this word that we treat like, oh, I can't wait to get to the weekend. And then I hate get to Monday. But when you just start living a fulfilled life, right, that when you're working, you're engaged in work. And when you're with family, you're engaged in family. And he may do some work on the weekend and he may go for a half day on Monday and go take his kids to a little adventure, right? Because he's living life as a life instead of life being this set black and white, like you mentioned earlier, between, oh, I work Monday to Friday and Saturday and Sunday I'm with family. Well, instead, if you just intertwine that life is life and you're living life to your fullest potential, right? Well, Chad shows up where he does work and he lives life and he explores with his family and he does all that as part of the whole week instead of just thinking this a Monday to Friday or Saturday to Sunday.
Yeah, we have to be more than just people on the weekend. We get to be
Correct.
people 7 days a week. So, Jason, if someone is really connecting with you, they want to connect with you online, where can they find you?
Sure. So the Live 100 podcast, get quick hits, just a lot more about what we talked today. You find that on all the different podcast platforms, or you go over to jasonyarusi.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on Taking Back Monday.
Yeah, thank you.